Hi folks, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Mau-Har series of hot tents. The Mau-Har is a conventional backpacking tent that comes with a zip-on vestibule to use a wood stove. It comes in a one-person version and a two-person version. The only difference is the two-person is a little bit wider. You can zip two Mau-Har tents together to sleep up to 4 people and still use the wood stove. Out of the box, the tent comes with a fully enclosed inner, a footprint, aluminum tri-corner stakes, adjustable guy lines, and a pole to pitch the stove vestibule. You can also use a hiking pole if you wish. Everything you need comes with the tent. No need to order additional stakes or guy lines. The tent is constructed of ripstop polyurethane coated nylon with aluminum tent poles. The seams come taped from the factory. There's no need to seam seal, but we do recommend seam sealing any tent as it does increase the lifespan of the tent. The stove jack and stove jack cover are removable and replaceable, and we keep replacement stove jacks in stock. To connect two tents together, just unzip the end of the stove vestibule and zip to the second tent. No additional components are needed, but we do sell the stove vestibule without the end if you want one dedicated to connecting two tents. Both the Mau-Har 1 and the Mau-Har 2 use the same stove vestibule. The tents are also symmetrical. You can have the vestibule on either side, and there's no head end or foot end for the inner tent. The one-person tent is wider than your typical one-person tent, more like a 1.5-person tent. There's plenty of room for you, a wide sleeping mat, your backpack, or possibly a medium-sized dog. The two-person tent is wide enough for two 25-inch wide pads. Both tents will accommodate someone up to 6'4", and there are interior pockets at either end of the inner tent. There's also a hook at the ceiling for holding a light or hanging gear. The interior doors can be fully unzipped, rolled up, and tied back. When using a stove, I'll usually leave the door on the stove side tied back. There's also a Velcro loop at each corner of the tent fly to attach the tent fly to the tent poles. The tent vestibule doors can be staked out individually or together. My preference is to stake out the side with the rain flap and enter and exit via the other door. You can also take both doors and roll them up and tie them back to the tent body. Looking at the stove vestibule, there's a rain flap over the zipper. You might get some drips through the zipper, but the vertical side walls of the inner tent will keep any water away from you. At the bottom corner of the vestibule, behind the attachment zipper, there's a small pair of plastic buckles. Those just help take some of the tension off the zipper and allows us to use a little coarser zipper, which should increase the lifespan of the tent a little bit. The side of the vestibule away from the stove will completely open up. In this case, you see we have it rolled up and attached at the top of the ridge line. You could also prop it open with a couple poles to make an awning if you wish. The corners of the vestibule unzipped allow access to the interior without opening the entire side. There's an adjustable cord lock at the peak of the vestibule. This allows you to pull tension on the top of the vestibule and keep everything from flapping around in the wind. There's another adjustable tie out below the chimney opening. For the one below the chimney opening, you just want to put a little bit of tension on the outer wall just to provide a little bit of tension on the back wall of the vestibule. Going around the vestibule, you have 2 additional tie outs. Provide a little more support to the wall of the vestibule. The vestibule is also staked out at each corner. You also have the ability to add 1 or 2 more stakes at each corner. In this case, we have 1 stake that's holding 2 tie outs, but there's actually a 3rd tie out in there as well. We've tested the Mau-Har in winds up to 40 miles per hour with all tie outs, and it's secure. If you use any hot tent in high winds, stake out everything you can, including your chimney. There's a lot of room in the vestibule. There's plenty of room for firewood, backpacks, wet gear, anything you want to keep out of the weather. There's just enough room in here, if you're careful, that you can have an extra person sit in the vestibule while the stove is running. For photography purposes, we have the stove turned with the door facing out from the vestibule. The stove is parallel to the tent body. In real life, you would actually rotate the stove so the door is facing the tent body, so you can sit inside the tent and feed the stove. If you do that, there's plenty of room in here for one person to sit, another person to sit in the inner tent, cook your dinner, warm up, what have you. So let's talk about who this tent is for and why you might use it. If you're getting started with hot tents, you might find this setup fairly familiar. The learning curve for pitching should be a little easier than, say, a pyramid tent. If you want a tent you can use year-round, you can use this tent year-round. You don't have to take the vestibule with you. With the vestibule unzipped, it's a fairly conventional backpacking tent with 2 doors and 2 small vestibules. If you want a hot tent with a fully bug-proof inner and a floor, this might be your tent. If you want a ton of vestibule space to keep gear out of the weather, this again might be your tent. If you want to share a tent stove with a companion, but don't want to share a sleeping area, this might be an option to consider. You can zip 2 one-person tents together to sleep 2, a 1 and a 2-person tent together to sleep 3, or 2 two-person tents as shown here to sleep a total of 4. If you have kids or teenagers, you might be able to provide a little more separation between them and the stove by simply putting the kids in the second tent. So that's an intro to the Mau-Har tents. If you have any questions, you can email us at help@threeridgesgear.com. Our phone number is also on our website if you want to give us a call. Thanks a lot. Look forward to talking to you.